Hey, this is Derica Famasili, and welcome to the Happiness Recipe Summit, where top experts are revealing their secret ingredients so you can create your own recipe for happiness. And today's vital ingredients to your happiness recipe is how to transform anger into happiness. Now, we all know, just by me saying that word, I'm probably getting a lot of yeses in the crowd because that's probably one of the most powerful emotions that just rips us, steals our happiness. I know you can agree. We're not just saying let's transform melancholy into happiness. We're talking about anger. That is a happiness, Steve, but it also it's there's so much passion and fuel behind that emotion that it just doesn't affect us, but usually a lot of people around us too. So I'm very excited to dance into this topic with you all with our top expert, Mr. Dr. Jefferey Fannin. Welcome to the show.
Derica, thank you for having me. I appreciate being on with you today.
Absolutely. We're going to dive right on in and get to know you a little bit better. So read your bio here. Dr. Jeff holds a PhD in psychology, an MBA, and a Bachelor's of Science degree in mass communications. He is the founder of Clinic and Research Center, Thought Genius, LLC. And is it Peoria?
Yes, Peoria. Peoria,
Peoria.
Arizona. Yeah.
Arizona, nice. He has worked in the neuroscience field researching and training the brain for over 25 years. Dr. Fannin is an international speaker, authority, the author of the two-volume book Commanding the Power of Thought in the field of optimal brain performance and cutting-edge neuroscience research and meditation. Creator of the online courses Commanding Thought University. He is featured in the documentary movie PGS, Intuition, Your Personal Guidance System. I've got to see that.
Yeah. Well, people can find it on Vimeo. They're storing it out there, and it was going all around the world, for a while, and we would get a movie theater full of people, and it's really weird the first time you see yourself up on this, 200-foot screen up there,
Oh, I
and
bet.
you're sitting there talking, and I just felt really weird looking at myself on a theater screen. So I can
So,
imagine how movie actors feel,
yeah.
coming about. So but yeah, we would have question and answer. So people that are in the movie, we would sit there and answer questions from people in the audience, after the movie about different topics and stuff. It was really quite fun. So it went around the world and things like that. And I remember not too long ago that the producer of the movie, Bill Bennett, he sent me a picture that they had this uh, large television with my picture on it underneath the banner when they had International Yoga Week. And
Wow.
so he was telling me, that I was on there. He said, "Yeah, Bruce Lipton is here speaking." I said, "Oh, well, tell Bruce hi, because Bruce is a friend of mine." And he says, "Well, he couldn't stay. He had another engagement, so he had to leave." And this was in India, where I think it was Dharamsala or Dharamsala that they were having that festival. I don't remember exactly, but anyway, and he says, "Oh yeah, we're showing it to the Dalai Lama this afternoon." I said, "Well, tell the Dalai Lama hi." I don't know the Dalai Lama, but he knows me now. So, but
Woo!
yeah, it's kind of fun. It was selling to uh, sold out theaters all around the world for, I think, over 9 months. That it was out there, and I still get emails and calls from people who have watched the movie. But it really gets into a lot of um, the journey that we all go on, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. The journey that
Yeah.
we all take, and how anger is such a big part of that.
Yeah. This is cool. So you said we can find this on Vimeo?
Yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, we're all going to watch that now.
Yeah.
That is super cool. Okay, we're Dr. Jeff. Let's jump in and let's get to know you a little bit more. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and then how you came to publish your two-volume book on commanding the power of thought?
Well, yeah. So I'll kind of start where that all began back in about 2008, after I'd been in the military and all of that sort of thing. And so as I was traveling around with Dr. Joe Dispenza and had a lot of experiences there and worked with a lot of uh, individuals who were quite prominent. As I talk about them, you would recognize their names. But I started writing that book, I think around 2007, 2008, somewhere in there, before I'd even connected up with Dr. Dispenza. We started doing work about 2013 together. But as I did that, and I would write a little bit about these experiences of people I worked with and so on, with the intention of creating the book. But it kind of got out of hand, you know. So I had all of these files and files and files of things that I had written and ideas and so forth. When COVID started, I had a friend of mine who said, you really ought to publish your book, because it's one of those things when you have a project that you start, you never can quite get it right. And so
Yeah.
you add a little more here, and you edit that, and you have somebody else look at it, and so on and so on. And so you finally get to the point where it's just like, put the pencil down and publish the darn thing. And so we started looking at it. It was like 520 pages. As I was, somebody said, well, maybe you can it's easier to publish that, because I've gone through 3 different publishers and things that they wanted to do with it, and I wasn't in agreement with it and fired them. And so it just kind of sat for a while till this friend of mine said, you really ought to get that thing published. So that's when we started putting it together and said, you could do it on Amazon. So I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll do it. So we put it together, and there were 520 pages, and it's like, that's way too big to publish. And so she said, my coach at the time, Angel, was saying, you really ought to break that up. So I ended up deciding to split it in half. So the first volume deals a lot with the laws of the universe and people that I worked with, and how I came to know some of these laws, and remote viewing, and what that's all about, and so people can understand. Then the second volume is all about being able to activate some of these things and do things for yourself in that way. And so I've actually started on my 3rd book now, working on that. So yeah, that 3rd book is going to be called Your Genius Mind, Paying It Forward, teaching people how to not only utilize these concepts in their life, but how they can pay it forward to other people in their life or part of their family or whatever.
Oh, that sounds beautiful, and the perfect next book to that. As you're saying, the volume 1 is really breaking down the laws of the universe, right? Into the science of it, if you will, explaining it. And then you're saying the volume 2 is like, how do we use it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how are we implementing it into our lives and such?
Yeah, then the 3rd book is going to be people who have overcome amazing challenges, and then me talking about the science of, how were they able to do that? And then how do you pay it forward when you have things in your life that are very disruptive or changing, or, the things that kind of came about for me. And it's starting to come out more now in the interviews. That a little over a year ago, and I never saw this coming, that I had a stroke, and I woke up that morning, the night before. I was doing a Zoom meeting with another project I was working on, and woke up and I couldn't open and close my left hand, and I couldn't speak, and so I live alone, and I was laying there trying to speak, and the words inside my head were not the ones coming out of my mouth. So I kept practicing for a while till I could, make myself at least a little bit clear and able to dial 911 and tell the operator that I needed help. And then the paramedics came, they took me to a hospital, and I was there for a couple of days. They got me stabilized, and they sent me to a rehab center because I had to learn to talk and walk and swallow and hold a pen and do, various dexterous things. But I was only in there for 12 days. And so there's part of this story that I was able to take what I know and what I do and be able to help the brain and the body reconnect and do the things that they're doing. And so that's part of how I've learned how to help people regardless of what their situation is, or, you know, what they've experienced in life, or, you know, if they've had hard times. How do you get rid of subconscious belief patterns? How do you be the best person that you can be given the life that you've lived? Because we all have that capacity. So I think it was the universe's way of saying, all right, buddy, let's see how good you really are. Get yourself out of this one.
Yeah. Here's the test, right?
It was really a blessing in disguise. So I'm really very fortunate to do what I do and know what I know. And, you know, so I spent a lot of years writing that book and looking at experiences and working with some really phenomenal people, you know, in that process, and, you know, traveling around the world. And, you know, I did over 4,000 brain maps on people who were supposed to be meditators. But what I really learned in that process, that most people have no idea how to meditate, let alone how to quiet their mind. And so we did brain maps on them. We could talk about the things that are getting in their way, stuff like that. So I also have some equipment that I use that I can measure your chakras, your energy field, how it's affecting the organs in your body. And then I have a program that I work with people anywhere in the world. So I can send them a kit. We could do a brain test online and check their blood to see what's going on with that. So my friend Bruce Lipton, he talks about the having your cells have the right conditions. So we need the cells of the body to be coherent. Now, what exactly does coherent mean? That means that in order to transfer energy and information from cell to cell, they have to be working in harmony with one another in order to do that. And so that's part of what we do. And then looking and talking to people about their chakra centers. So before we get into the meat of our discussion today, I know that there are 3 electromagnetic centers that are very, very important in the body. One is the electromagnetic center around your chakras and how we deal with all 7 of those. And then the next one is the electromagnetic center around the heart. And the third one is the electromagnetic center around the brain. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is the electromagnetic center around the heart is 60 times greater than the electromagnetic center around the brain. So I asked myself, you know, why is that? Why does that happen that it's 60 times greater? And the reason is that we have over 4,000 neurites. And a neurite is like a neuron in the brain, so it can learn, it can remember, it can execute commands on its own. So this relationship between the heart and the brain becomes very, very important because we have this vagus nerve that runs between the heart and the brain. And so it's all about how we create our own energy field. And for most people, that's about 3 feet in all directions. And there are 2 parts to our autonomic nervous system. One is called the sympathetic nervous system. So as we have those negative experiences, if you will, being angry, frustrated, and so on, it goes up this vagus nerve to the brain, where the brain then creates a neuropeptides and causes to have some emotional feeling about that. And then on the other side is the parasympathetic nervous system, which creates the coherence that we're talking about. So the sympathetic nervous system is ramping things up and, you know, fight or flight kind of thing. And then we have the parasympathetic that is ramping things down, so it brings it into balance. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we're able to learn how to do that. And that's part of what we do in helping people using the HeartMath device. I don't know if you're familiar with HeartMath, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I've been a certified trainer for HeartMath for many years. And as I was traveling around with Dr. Joe and doing all of these brain maps and understanding what was going on, and I could see what was happening in the brain maps, and we'd end up talking about this autonomic nervous system thing. And then we'd get around talking about the inner balance that they have. And they'd say, oh yeah, I've got one of those, and hold it up, but I don't know what to do with it. So I went back to HeartMath. I said, look, I'm meeting these people all over the world, who have no idea what to do about that. So for the first time in their history, they allowed me to produce 6 videos on my own. So when I start working with somebody, I give them one of these videos or all of these videos so they can learn to deal with some of these things. So if they're dealing with anger and they're nose to nose with somebody, and how they can deal with that situation and bring the coherence into that, balance things out, because otherwise it will trigger that part of our autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. So I have a chart that I will show people all the time. A police officer, for example, that was trained in getting this coherence in their brain. And so they got to this domestic violence situation, and so their heart rate went up, like to 180, 182, something like that. And normally the encounter in the domestic violence system or scene was that it lasted maybe 5 or 6 minutes. Now, normally during that time, we would produce enough cortisol in our brain and our body that it would take over 2 weeks to get out of our system. But he learned how to drop that rate down and balance the coherence out, so he didn't deal with the effects of that. Now, the effects are when we produce too much cortisol, one of the first things to go is our memory. So it isn't like our memory disappears, it interferes with that electrochemical process. So I hear this all the time. People say, well, I think I'm getting Alzheimer's or I'm getting dementia. And we look and it really deals with stress. So putting this in, ramping up the autonomic nervous system, or they have anger problems or things like that. And so we can end up with adrenal fatigue simply because we're overdriving that system. So our adrenal glands sit on top of our kidneys there. And so we can burn that out. And so it's important to learn how to balance your system. So if we live an angry, frustrated life, that can be very, very difficult. So we might want to first begin by understanding where does some of that come from? How do we get there? And how does that system work? And how can we interrupt the system and do something better?
Yes, and that's exactly where we're going here in this next question, because I love how you painted us a visual picture of the systems and like what is happening in that fight or flight. And that's what anger is, right? We're stressed to the max. And so this is what's happening to our body. And you do see all these conditions we hear, dementia settling in. I mean, we're basically killing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Putting ourselves in hiding anger like that. But I want to talk a little bit more about like how are we actually doing that? Because I think a lot of people, and this is where I struggled in the very beginning too, was how am I actually creating the anger in my body?
Good question, Derek. So what happens is, we'll talk about 2 systems here. One is the amygdala. So deep down in the subconscious part of our brain, so we're not aware that that's happening down the middle part of our brain. And we have 2 sides to that, the left and the right. And so when the amygdala fires, this is where the fight or flight comes from. So it fires and sends a signal to the brain, and the brain is going to create those neuropeptides. Now, down the other system that we're going to talk about deals with the anger, the frustration, the fear, all of those things, and they come from the thalamus. So the thalamus is also in our subconscious brain, and that's where our subconscious beliefs reside, is in the thalamus of our brain. And so what is the subconscious belief? Subconscious belief is nothing more than a thought we have over and over and over again that gets rooted in our subconscious belief. So then the thinking part of our brain, it is the one that acts on the rule. So what is the rule? It's down here in the thalamus, gets sent up into the thinking part of our brain, and it creates that emotion, and we feel angry, we feel frustrated. So if I'm driving down the highway and all of a sudden somebody cuts me off and I have to slam on the brakes, and I'm, very angry about that sort of thing, that this sets off a chain of events that begin to happen. Um, so, for example, let's say that condition occurs. I'm feeling angry and frustrated, so it's going to send that signal up the vagus nerve in the autonomic nervous system through the sympathetic, tell my brain I'm angry, and so it's going to say, okay, so it doesn't produce the neuropeptides at random. We learn what it is that we need to produce, so that this functions normally. It would really be a really screwed up world if we get angry and then we have this feeling of love, or something like that, But it's going to be the same thing every time, because that's the rule, and our conscious mind is going to execute on that rule based on what's coming up out of the amygdala fires. And that with fight or flight, are we going to fight this situation? We're going to run away from it. What are we going to do? So it then goes back into our subconscious beliefs, and it looks to see what is the rule. So the thalamus of the brain basically is like the hub of these things. So it's going to store all of those rules that we've gotten. So when we go back to the third trimester of when we're being conceived, all the way up to age of 8, we really have no filters. And I used to joke around about this a lot when I would speak on stage, until I really began to think about how true this is. And I would say, if my mother was angry and anxious when I was being conceived, that's going to be in my cells, and I'm going to be anxious and angry. Well, that's a pretty bad life sentence to have. So then I realized we can change those subconscious beliefs. We are not prone to have those, but they're going to fire off based on what we want. So can we bring that chart up of your point of attraction? Can we bring that up?
Yes, yes. Let's do that now. One moment.
Yeah, so in the book, I write about these things and have the charts there, and people can download this off of my website. All of we had to print that in black and white simply because the color would have added so much more to the price. But people can go to the website, you can download all of the figures in the book in color there. So this helps us understand a little bit more about our point of attraction. So when we look at our thoughts, and so whether we have a wanted or an unwanted thought, it doesn't matter. Same principle applies here. So that thought is going to have a vibration of some kind. So when we look at this list going from depression, revenge, anger, all the way up to joy, empowerment, and love, which is a faster vibrating frequency. So let's just take anger. Let's say a person gets angry. Can a person go from anger to passion easily? And the answer to that is yes. So the mechanism is there for them to go from anger to passion. The problem is they cannot sustain it, because here's another law, a universal law that will enter into this. So we have the vibration of this angry thought. It's vibrating at a particular rate. And so we know that if you hold that angry thought for 16 to 17 seconds, other energy that is vibrating like that will be attracted to it. So then we start thinking more thoughts about this. So let's go back to the scenario. Get cut off on the freeway, slam on the brakes, now I'm angry. And so I'm thinking about this going over and over in my mind about, that knucklehead cut me off and blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking about, and that's vibrating this energy. So now what's it doing? It's bringing other energy, other thoughts that are like that. Well, what about that time that you were doing this and that happened and so said this to you? And so our mind starts creating this story, this what's going to happen, and it's going to bring up each of these vibrations. If you don't like that one, well, you're really not going to like this thought, and it goes on and on and on. But let's introduce a little bit of science into this. So we have that vibration, and it's going to have a certain amount of energy that we call amplitude. And as those things come together, that energy connects. And when it comes together, it creates what's called a constructive interference pattern. And so that energy Now let's give each of those a number of 1. So at the apex of the energy, it's 1, and then bring another 1, and another 1, and another, all the way up to 68 seconds. Now it has amassed enough energy that it's not just energy matter that is being affected, but it's particle matter that's being affected. And so we can affect particle matter. Now, what does that mean exactly? So I decided to stop at the grocery store on my way home from having somebody cut me off, and I'm still thinking about this and going on and on and on about it. And so I passed the 68-second mark. Now maybe I passed the 10-minute or half-hour mark. Or, how long have I been thinking about this? But it's amassing that energy. So I get in the grocery store and I pick up 3 things to take home to fix dinner. And I get up to the checkout, and here is where we have now affected particle matter. Now I'm attracting the things into my life based on this belief, and I'll come back to the rest of the story here in just a minute. So I have this angry, frustrating thing that's going on that I'm thinking about, and now it's attracting. So I get up to the checkout, and it's this is the guy's first day, and he's very slow, and there's a person in front of me that it's the express line, and they have 28 items in their express. Now, is that coincidence, or is it something that has caused me to be even more angry? Things are coming into my life in order for me to experience, because we live in a universe that is an inclusive universe. So you have to be careful what you're asking for. So I'm asking for things that are angry and frustrating, and what's coming back to me, issues in my life to be angry and frustrated about.
Yeah.
So that's part of the interaction, not only with our brain and our body, but also what happens in our life, that we are creating those things, that we are the creator of our own reality. And
Yeah.
how are we doing that? So one of the things that many people have heard of, the law of attraction. So you have something, I'm wanting this and I'm wanting that. So let's go back to the brain part of this and the feeling part of that. Let's say that you're thinking, I want more money. I want to be happier. I want to be healthier. But let's use the money example here. So you're thinking, I want more money. I want more money. So it's your conscious brain that's thinking, I want more money. But in your subconscious, you have a belief that says, you don't deserve more money. And that's the vibration that is being put out into the field.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not changing that and getting into what we call a receptive zone, so that you can attract what it is you do want, and that's what it means by being part of an inclusive universe. Whatever you're asking for, that's what you're getting. So if I'm thinking angry thoughts, frustrated, being overwhelmed, whatever on that chart that we were showing, then that's what's going to come back to me.
That's so true, because this happened to me just yesterday. I was having just to recap on what you're saying to bring it full circle, because I think every single person understands what you just said to a degree about the spiral of however something happens. Like I was having a tooth pain yesterday, and it kind of made me just flustered. You're in pain, you got something irritating you, and then I go to the grocery store and my son didn't have a mask on, and so then I'm getting picked on by everyone, and they're kind of like, pointing and getting us out of the store. And then I finally get into the store, and then someone almost hits my son with the basket, which makes me like, and then they go off. And it was just like this spiral that happened
Creating
where I kept
pain
getting
and frustration, yeah.
over and over. It kept coming, these little things. And I noticed it's because I have this thought that I keep throwing out that I'm uncomfortable. There was this discomfort coming. So I kept getting people and experiences that were showing just that. So we get that, but I wanted to I want to now go back to something else you said a little earlier, because it caught my eye on when I said, how are we actually like being triggered by anger? And you mentioned something from conception to 8 years old. And
Right.
I think that is so interesting to people, because we kind of live in a state of I call it a state of hypnosis, where we're just suggestible and everything's happening to us at that moment. So we have these, are you saying like programs within our subconscious mind, these beliefs in our subconscious mind that are of angry beliefs?
Well, they can be, so we're going to design whatever. So let's go back to the third trimester all the way up to age 7 or 8. So our brain is basically, we have, different frequencies that our brain operates at. So there's delta, theta, alpha, beta. So most of our cognitive thinking activity is beta. But when we're young like that, we're trying to figure out how the world works. We're trying to figure out how language works. And so that's being modeled for us by our parents, our teachers, our friends, things. That's how we learn how the world works. What we don't realize, the things that we think about, oh, well, and I used to think about this many years ago, that I would do something and then I would wonder, where did that come from? Why did that happen? And I would be real curious about it. This was happening especially when I was going to college, and I'd go home, I'd see my parents do it, and it's like, there it is, there it is. That's why I'm doing that. And then when you start to realize that you see that modeled for you, and you think, oh, well, this is the way the world works. And so that thought then goes down into your subconscious, into the thalamus of the brain, where all of these subconscious beliefs live. And so then it gets triggered. You have some experience, and the brain's going to say, okay, what is it? Oh, this is kind of like, when I was riding with my dad and he got angry because somebody cut him off, and I guess that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get angry. So we put that in there. What we don't realize is that it's the 5-year-old driving the train when we're 40, And so those same subconscious beliefs are in there. And so we wonder, why do we keep having the same experiences over and over and over? And it may not dawn on us till we get into our 40s or 50s. We think that's just the way life is.
Yeah.
And even when you learn the science of it, what goes on, will we stop and take a minute to be in the moment of analyzing what that is and what we value most, and change those subconscious beliefs? So I work with people every single day about, changing subconscious beliefs, and there's a mechanical function for doing that and changing them. And Greg Reed has this program called Secret Knock, and he's invited me to that for years, and doing what I call brain magic from the stage. So they would pick somebody, we'd bring them up on stage, put the brain cap on their head and put the gel in, all that stuff. And then I would change their subconscious belief, and we project it up on a 30-foot screen, and people could just see that happen, and watch that, and then begin to understand the science of that there is this electrochemical function that's going on from the subconscious to our conscious mind, which then executes whatever the rule is. And if you want to know what's on your subconscious belief window, just look at your behavior, And so I would say, I'm doing this and I don't want to be doing it. I'd go home and see my parents do that, and I would go, there it is. But that didn't necessarily fix it. So you can change your subconscious beliefs. And when we start looking at people who are very successful, who are very powerful, who are able to do things, they've learned how to manage or how to deal with commanding the power of thought. And so one of the key principles in there, it's like training the dog. You want the dog to sit and to stay. Sit, stay. And then you go back, sit. And our brain is just trying to execute what it's getting as the rule in being able to do that. And so there is a way that we can change those, like people who you look at them and say, wow, they're so lucky, they're able to have the life that they want to live, and they're living it. And, how come I can't do that? Well, because we're sending out inconsistent thoughts. We're putting resistance into the field, and the field says, well, I guess you don't want that, you want this instead. And that's kind of what happens.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing too, I kind of want to just make it clear, is that we have these subconscious beliefs that we inherited from time of third trimester in the womb to 8 years old. Basically, whatever we've seen and experienced, we just kind of accepted it as our reality. And then Are
Yeah,
we also absorbing and creating beliefs after 8 as well?
right. Let me explain the technical aspects of that. So we have some experience, and then we're going to put some meaning to that experience, and then we're going to add some emotion to that. We call it a cognition. So it's kind of like when you have a song and it takes you way back when you have memories and feelings about that, right? So those things get all bound together with a neurotransmitter that we call acetylcholine. So one of the things that we can do, and when I first got into this field and working with young children who had been abused or things like that, and these things get locked in there. So you look at PTSD and fight or flight or what goes on, whatever becomes the rule or a set of rules on how they're supposed to act or react when these things get triggered. So let's suppose we'll go back to the song thing and say that at some point you had a boyfriend when you were younger and you guys had a special song and it had a special feeling to it. And then later on, you're no longer with this boyfriend and now you're mad at them. And now this song has a different feeling to it. So many years later, you're walking down the mall and they're playing music up overhead and it starts playing this song that you had. You're not even paying attention to it, but your subconscious is, because our conscious mind functions at 40 bits per second, the thinking part of our brain at 40 bits per second, but our subconscious mind operates at 40 million bits per second. So you're not paying attention, you're walking down the mall, the song is playing up overhead, and you're consciously looking in the windows, deciding what you're going to buy, so on and so on. But your subconscious is hearing the music. And all of a sudden, it triggers this, uh, whatever the rule is. Well, I don't feel good about this song, and blah blah blah. And so now you're not feeling as good, but you don't know why. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. I know a lot of us are nodding our heads right now because there's
Yeah,
been so many times we're angry or upset and we're like, why? And we
yeah.
we're consciously asking like, I don't know, but at some point you were triggered, maybe the same environment or a song or whatever time of day, but your subconscious picked it up and you automatically you're going to feel that emotion.
Now, there's a reason behind all this, and we'll add in another universal law right now. Many people have heard of the yin and the yang, you know, black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. And some people adhere to those rules very rigidly, so they have a very rigid rule base. You're either right or you're wrong. There's nothing in between. So when we are looking at that situation and trying to decide what the rules are and how we go about it, the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, black and white, right or wrong, that is a necessary part of that. So we have what we don't want, and then we have what we do want.
Mm.
And so I thought about that for a long, long time, and I would think now, if 95% of our thoughts are negative, and only 5% of what we think about is positive, what we say, think, and do is going to come out of our conscious thinking mind. And I wondered, why would God create a system that 95% of our thoughts are negative? And so in one of my meditations, it came to me that we have to know what we don't want in order to use our free will to choose what we do want. So we can focus on what we do want, not what we don't want. But most of us will focus on what we don't want, not recognizing that we live in a universe of inclusion. Oh, well, you must want me to give you more of what you don't want. And we keep
Yeah.
saying, no, 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 I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. But the universe says, oh, no, it doesn't hear the don't. It only hears you want more of that. The thing that you don't want is what you want more of.
Mm.
And that's
Because
what
it's
we
in
do.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we begin to? Because I know, like for me, I suffered from anger for well, and well into my 20s. Since I was a little bitty girl, I just remember always being super angry, and it was. I don't know. I went back to the womb when you said in conception. I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. My mom was not happy at that time when I was conceived and all of that stuff. So like, okay, I start picking up, yeah, which I was an angry girl from my environment, and then like it happened, like a series of events just kept getting more angry, 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 and so here we are. So we inherited all of these programs of being angry or whatever, a slew, right? An array of different things. But we're talking
Right.
about anger. So we have the anger programs. I know if anyone's out there like me, it kind of runs your life. Like it was heavy, right? Let's talk to that person who has tons of angry triggers. And what can someone do, no matter where they picked up that belief, no
Right.
matter
It
where
really
it
doesn't
came from?
matter where you got it. You know,
What can we begin doing to start rewiring or releasing? I don't know what lingo to use here, but getting those anger programs out of our system.
all right. One of the things that I help people understand is something called attitude breathing. And what that means is I'm angry and I don't want to feel angry. I want to feel calm. Okay. So the first thing is you have to acknowledge how you're feeling. Recognize I'm feeling angry, not saying, oh, well, it's bad to feel anger. Somebody made up that rule. It's what you're experiencing. I'm feeling angry. And so you acknowledge I'm feeling angry, but I don't want to feel angry. So then we're going to choose, how do I really want to feel if I'm feeling angry? So I want to feel calm. And then we can start breathing in through our heart, and so we breathe in through our nose, out through our mouth, and we are focused on our heart. Now, why would we focus on our heart? Because we have those 4,000 neurites down there that are going to be sending those messages up the vagus nerve. So if we're angry and we're vibrating that way, we want to bring in, the other side, the parasympathetic nervous system. It's what we call coherence. And being in coherence is what allows that to occur. And so we go back to, okay, it's like training the dog. If I get angry a lot of that, psychology tells us that, anger is nothing more than depression turned inward. That we're angry and so it's unresolved anger that causes us to be depressed, things like that. Well, if that's what's going on in our life, we have a choice. We can change those, because how did they get there in the first place? A thought we had over and over and over again. And we may have been too young to even know that. We may have even been in the womb,
Mm.
when that occurred. And so now we have this information and energy that's in our cells. Our cells are not coherent. So what are they passing from cell to cell to cell? I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry.
No.
And so it's not balanced. We don't have the coherence in the cells. And I learned this by a lot of the research that I had done with people who can't focus and concentrate, and being able to open up the pathways and so on. I mean, that's a longer story for another time. But the issue is we are not able to change those. We just keep having the same thoughts over and over, same feelings over and over, keep having the same experiences over and over. We have to interrupt that pattern in some way. We have to change the thought. And so when I was doing this stuff, with Greg Reed and showing people how this works, it's about getting the right energy to flow through your body. And in my books, I talk about, we did a study in 2015, I think, and we had 60 known energy healers. I want to know how energy healing works, because there's lots of different forms of energy healing. It's about getting that energy to flow through the body. So I present all of the results in one of the chapters of the book about energy healing. So again, we're talking about, we are vibrational beings living in a vibrational universe and being able to manage those vibrations. So if all thoughts are things, they are vibrations. And so we talked about, the vibrations and how we attract other thoughts that are like them, that sort of thing. And it's being able to then, going back to our example here of, the attitude breathing,
Yeah.
that we're breathing in and out through the heart. So we're trying to balance that relationship between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And now I want to feel calm. So we We pick the feeling that we want to feel. I want to feel calm. I want to feel excited. I want to feel passionate. I want to feel whatever it is. And then,
Now, do we do that at the moment? Like, because I heard you say pattern, like pattern interrupt. So walk me through if the person's watching right now and say they get angry, at their house being dirty. Their house is filthy and like no one's doing their job or whatever. And so they're like, ugh, they have this pattern of just getting frustrated looking at their pile of dirty dishes. So say that person is in their kitchen, they're angry because of all this mess. Is that the time where they will start doing this attitude breathing?
yeah, they can in any situation. And so, as I'm training people and working with them, they can be in any situation in their life, and they can be nose to nose with somebody and have a very frustrating situation. But they can shift this in a matter of seconds. So, first of all, it goes back to we don't really care why you're feeling angry. You're just feeling angry or frustrated,
Okay.
and so you must have felt anger at some time in order to experience that. It's part of how we're wired. Then you must have also felt calm or excited, or through our experiences. Then we can call on our memory banks. What does it feel like, when I felt calm?
Mm,
So it starts to manufacture those neuropeptides so that we have the feeling that we call calm.
yeah.
And so then once you acknowledge the feeling, and then you decide what feeling you want instead of the one you have, and then you find a time where you felt that before, and you can go to that memory or feeling or whatever, and then it will begin to balance that out and cause the sympathetic and the parasympathetic to come into balance. Now you have coherence, and now you can begin to change things. So you can change your life if you don't like things that are happening in your life. Well, you're the architect of your life. And so it's
Right.
about changing those belief systems and being able to do that. Now, another part of that is when we look at the vibrational thing we talked about earlier, getting into the receptive zone. How do I get into the receptive zone? So I'm angry and I'm frustrated because of the pile of dishes. How do I make that shift? How do I make that leap? Some of us just can't do it that way. So we have to then go into the receptive zone. So there is a difference vibrationally between gratitude and appreciation. So when we look at the word gratitude and appreciation, a lot of people use them synonymously, but there really is a very fundamental difference. Gratitude means I am grateful that I'm not here and I'm over here.
Mm,
I'm grateful for that. Well, it has a lower, denser vibration than appreciation. Appreciation is closer to the vibration of unconditional love. So I'm sitting here in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's not summer now, but let's say that it was summer and it's 116 degrees. I can be appreciative that I'm sitting here talking in my office, and it's a very nice 79 degrees in my office. And I'm not outside in 116 degrees. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate it's a sunny day. I can appreciate that it's raining. We're getting the moisture here. I can appreciate when I go to bed my nice soft pillow and my warm blanket. So we can find appreciation. We have to be in the moment, you
yes.
know, and to be able to look at that and to be able, I'm here and I want to go there. And so I'm going to find the feeling that I want. I'm going to acknowledge that, not pretend like it's not happening. We're going to, acknowledge it's happening. And if it keeps happening too much, we may look at that and say, wow, I have a subconscious belief that I need to change because I'm keep getting the same response again and again and again. So maybe I need to change that.
Okay. So this is very powerful stuff here, you guys. What we can do, so either we could face Goliath, like face the anger right in the moment if we can. Sometimes we probably can, sometimes we can't, depending on how big it is, right? How much momentum is behind this anger. Or we can do it at a much later time. We can think about the anger and then acknowledge it, right? So that's us focusing on it, but our whole mission now is to then Then reprogram, find an event that brings up the calm or brings up the other beautiful feeling you would like to feel instead. So we'll acknowledge it, breathing, deeply breathing in our body, and then bring up the opposite, the feeling that we want to have. And that's a practice. As you're saying, beliefs are just thoughts we've had over and over again. So the more that we do this, the more that we are becoming more of that happier, calmer, more peaceful person. And actually, are we actually releasing or like killing off those anger beliefs, or do they kind of lay dormant? I've always been curious about
Well,
that.
yeah, that's a really good question, Jerica. That we're not killing off those things. Those that anger, that frustration, that fear serves a process, serves a function that we need. If I'm now, there's warranted and unwarranted. So let's suppose that I have. Let's talk about fear for just a second. Let's suppose I have fear, and anger is just akin to fear. So if I'm standing out in the middle of the freeway and cars are whizzing by me and I'm afraid, well, that's warranted. But if I'm sitting at home, in my nice easy chair in my comfortable living room, and I'm feeling fear, that is unwarranted, thinking that something's going to happen to me. So we've made an association, our perception about what things are happening. So if we're at home and we're afraid something's going to happen, something's going to break, somebody's going to come in, all these bad things that are going to happen to us, it is our perception of the world. Is the world a good place or a bad place? And we're going to put that perception of what we think about the world based on what was modeled for us. So we may have as an adult, we may have a perception of the world that it is an unfriendly place. Okay, so if our perception is that it's an unfriendly place, what is going to be mirrored back to us? All of the things that make it an unfriendly place, right? We're going to attract those situations into ourselves so that we just to validate that our perception is that we live in an unfriendly universe here.
Right. So the
And
whole
so,
point is transforming that anger is we're going to the root, we're getting to the subconscious belief. We are doing our conscious work. We're being conscious of this pattern, this is happening, and I'm giving a new command that this is what I want to feel instead. And we make that a daily practice, and you have also phenomenal tools, right? You have many other tools to help
yeah,
rewire these subconscious beliefs. And just because of time's sake here, and that's so powerful, I want everyone replay. I hope you took notes because I always say blue pen, white paper. You guys, hope you're taking notes. But anyways, replay. I want to get into, there was so much digested here. And we know that basically it's all starting in the mind. It's in the mind. And so we're becoming commanders of our mind, or of our vortex here. And this is a great place to start is Dr. Jeff's information, you guys. It's brilliant information. He has countless, tens of thousands of studies where he's helped release those subconscious beliefs and actually help one reprogram into where they want to be. It's really a motherboard, and we can take control of this. So, Dr. Jeff, can you get into that free gift? Because I just want them to know what it is that they're getting at their fingertips right now.
yeah. When I kept getting asked these questions before, I have to explain the story over and over and over again. So then I distilled it down to the five keys to commanding the power of thought. So that's the free gift. So if people go to my website, thoughtgenius.com, and they can find that, just go down on the homepage and you'll find, the five gifts. There are other things that are on there. We're getting ready to bring out an online course, so I've teamed up with Sherry Gideons, and she's on there. We talk about, we're getting ready to release a new show called Moment to Moment, what we deal with in moment to moment of our life and how we execute some of these things, how we put them together. So people can sign up for our show and get the paper there called Food for Thought, and then we will have this free show that people can get on. We will talk with people and how to overcome things. We'll even take some of the people who are in the audience and allow them to come on and talk about, and help them right then and there. with some of these things.
That
And
is so
also,
brilliant.
yeah, getting some interesting guests who've overcome things and talk about those issues. So, and then the online course is, okay, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? We'll have different levels so we can do that. And, I do a lot of personal coaching and training with people, as Sherry does. And, but this moment to moment is allowing us to begin to understand how to change our life moment to moment.
Yeah, that's where it's all at. That's what
Yeah.
it's all about, you guys. That's how we get to our happiness, which is there. It's already us. It's within us. It's awakening it. It's getting rid of those darn, opposite beliefs to our happiness that's contradicting who we are. So, you guys, download please this phenomenal gift on his site, thoughtgenius.com. You're going to find, like he said, he mentioned a few here, some other just invaluable. I mean, this is priceless. Priceless information you guys are getting here absolutely for free. I downloaded mine and I'm loving it. So get yours today. And I just want to say, Dr. Jeff, thank you so much. Your time is valuable.
Well,
You
Rebecca, thank you for having me on. I This has been a really great conversation, and I think that it affects every single one of us, and we just none of us like it. So it's a matter of how do you manage it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's it. Managing it and one breadcrumb at a time. I always say, let's just keep moving forward, and that what you're wanting is going to come. We just don't give up. We keep going, you guys, and it's all here. So again, thank you, Dr. Jeff, and thank you, viewers, for staying with us for this hour. I think we went over a little bit, but you guys stayed with us, so thank you so much. Enjoy your free gifts, and if you love this vital ingredient, you're going to love the next show. Take care, everyone, and keep smiling, and I'll see you soon.
See you.